Glenn, it's wonderful to meet you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out for the program today.
Yeah, thanks. I'm looking forward to being on.
Me too. So let's begin our journey with this. 6 years ago, looking at the calendar, we're in March. The pandemic was taking shape, changing our lives, changing the world. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you approach life and work today?
Oh wow, that's a really interesting question. The pandemic era, how did I get through that? I got through that actually by doing what I do now, which is being able to help people with their behaviors. I was early on in starting my company, Stamina Lab, and we really weren't into a product phase yet. We were more in the exploration phase, and I was doing a lot of work in behavioral science. I had worked with my partner. I just started working with my partner, Dr. Deborah Teplow. I was working with Dr. BJ Fogg out of Stanford, and they're both Stanford graduates actually. And Dr. Fogg was really interested in helping during that pandemic, and he got a lot of our people that are involved with him to start doing programming around how do people help people get through the pandemic, and the behavioral science work that we were doing just fit perfectly in there. So it really gave me a lot of purpose during that time, and helped to get through the pandemic by just being able to use the knowledge and skills that I have to help others during that time period. And we did all kinds of different topics, how to sleep better, how to manage stress, anxiety, all the things that were happening there. Using at that time with BJ Fogg, we were using the tiny habits approach with the work we do. We use some of the tiny habits, but it's mostly about the solution focused approach, which of course we're going to talk about. And so I think that catapulted the desire to really dig into this space that I'm in right now. And the that was really one of the key pieces to get through the pandemic, was being able to serve and help others in that during that time period.
And I would imagine, and with the work that you're doing, having a spotlight on mental health probably made things more voluminous and made things more relevant.
Yeah, definitely. The work I had done previously, just working on mindfulness and my meditation with John Kabat-Zinn, and that time period that I was doing, that really applied really well to the pandemic time period. And then applying that with the behavioral science work, it was just a confluence of things that not only was able to help others, that were reaching out and trying to find things through Dr. Fogg's work, but also family and friends too as well, being able to use the same principles. So that's how I helped myself, was by helping others, and that really gave me a lot of purpose during that time period.
So let's get to the essence of what you do on a daily basis right now. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 13-year-olds at career day, and one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you
Ah,
synthesize that for their brains?
yeah, that's interesting for 13-year-olds. Okay, so what do I do? Well, I work with professionals, health professionals, and performance professionals. That could be your teacher, that could be anyone that's in the helping space, to be able to train them in a way that helps them help you. So using a evidence base, which is having a lot of science behind it, that allows people to use this approach repeatedly, so that way you can improve yourself.
So, what did you want to be when you were that age? What was your ultimate dream life?
When I was 12. Well, I think that probably I was a entrepreneur from that age. I think one of my earliest gigs was shoveling snow. That was one of those where you just go around, knock on the door. You'd shovel the driveway first, and then you knock on the door and say,
Yeah.
"I just shoveled your driveway. Would you give me any money?" And obviously you're 12 and cute, so that you got that. But that was one of the many things I did when I was really young, to start a business, and that's pretty much right out of college. That's what I did. I was only worked for a couple of years before I started my first company.
So, what were the elements? Where are you from originally? Are you originally from Austin?
No, I'm from all over really. I was born in Kansas, and I grew up in the east coast of Pennsylvania. Finished up on the west coast of Pennsylvania, so Philadelphia, north of Philadelphia, north of Pittsburgh. I went to school in the Midwest, and then had some started my company in Florida, but then soon was in San Francisco for 25 years, and now I'm in Austin. So I feel like I really do that. I think it's a interesting perspective that I have where, that it's not just one part of the country that I know. I just know intimately, really feel the whole country.
Absolutely, you do. So, take me back to your beginnings. What were the foundational elements, the seeds that were planted that gave you this entrepreneurial spirit, this ability to help people help others, to kind of break all of that down? How did this happen?
I think there's a lot of things I attribute to my mom. She was a when we were young, she took care of us, but she had her I guess we call it side hustle now, which was her company was Knots Pots and Beads. We were talking about that where she had she did I guess macrame or something. I don't know, one of the things, and in ceramic pots, and on the kiln and whatnot, and she sold those at fairs, and I went along with her, and I had to be entertained. This was before my sister was born, so really young. Had to be like 2 or 3 years old, just around then. And I made these little ceramic mountains, which was just, and I sold them for whatever change. And they would just go in the planter as something that would go into a planter. I was just 3 years old and cute, so that's where people were giving me money, but also was keeping me busy and occupied while she was running her business. So I guess 3 years old was my first business, was selling these ceramic mountains. And yeah, so I think that, seeing her do that, she had her own business. She ran a title insurance company for many, many years. So having that, seeing that entrepreneurial and creative, the creative part of it too, like the crafts and whatnot were the creative part of it. She always made our world really um, amazing with little bit of money, because she created that with her creativity, all the crafts and the world that she designed for us. So when you put in that creativity with that entrepreneurial spirit, I put a lot of that on my mom, and then also you just we like I said, we lived in Eastern Pennsylvania. We moved to Western Pennsylvania, and I that was right around when I went to high school, and we had to do that for family and whatnot. And I was like, oh, I need to really take control of my life if I want it, because I really liked where I was in the nice suburbia in the Eastern Pennsylvania. And so this is something about having some level of autonomy over my life. And yeah, that was, and then I think the generation I was in, I think we really just, that Gen X was just like the man was not something you'd want to do. So,
Uh-huh.
you have the larger cultural stuff, you have the family stuff and that
Yep.
type of thing.
Totally feel it. So, who's the inspirational force in your life? Who's been that hero that's allowed you to grow and evolve into knowing your place professionally in your life at this point?
Yeah. Yeah, I have obviously I told you talked about my mom. She was very influential, at the time, where when I was growing up. So I graduated in high school around 90. And so Apple Computer was the thing with Steve Jobs, and the Mac had just come out a few years earlier. And so Steve Jobs was definitely one of the inspirations before he was the god of everything. He was still pretty amazing, and so that was a mentor for me, or someone that I looked up to. There was Wired magazine's really popular now, but back in the beginning, in the
Yeah.
early '90s, it was really underground stuff. You had like these long FTP sites to go to. There was no web browser at that point, and
Uh-huh.
that was that in the early days. Look at that. That was just like everything in there was. I could still have that first year or two of Wired magazines where they're all just written up, and that was just like, okay, everything in this is what I'm dreaming
Uh-huh.
of being and doing. And so the that would be probably Kevin Kelly, who was the editor at the time, um, and not knowing who he was, but that whole magazine drive was um, really influential for me. And I have to say right now, my partner, Dr. Deborah Teplo, she's an inspiration to me. She pushes me to be better, more rigorous scientifically, and she really has very good uh, connection to ensuring that we're bringing the best solid science to the work that we're doing, and it's not it can stand up to a lot of rigor. In fact, our program is approved for CME credits by the second largest medical school in the country, the Indiana um, School of University School of Medicine. So, being able to have that behind us, behind the work we're doing, is just really gratifying, and I just really love working with her every day.
You know, I had a subscription to Wired back when it was hip and it was like starting out. And I was always surprised because it was only like 10 or 15 bucks to get a subscription. I'm like, how are they doing this? They got all these interviews, they got all of these exposés. It was a well-made magazine. It was
That
that
was
different
beautiful.
kind of
The cover, the texture on the cover, yeah.
yes. Just the whole thing felt like a sturdy book every month that came in, and it was just so cool. Yeah, it's
I
wild.
would go to it was I was in college, so it was college town, and I remember there was just one bookstore
Yep.
or small little independent place that had this, and I could only go to that place. And every month when that came out, like I said, the cover feel to it, I can just
Yeah.
still remember that.
It was
What that
beautiful.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good memory. I hadn't thought about that in a while. So let me ask you this. You threw out some central figures and names there when we were talking about heroes and inspirations. If you could meet one person alive on the planet right now, spend some time with them, have a lunch, talk to them that might help you on your journey, who would you love to meet?
Well, I think that I already met him. I've met him twice. Is Mark Cuban.
Okay.
He is fantastic, super smart. He was in South by Southwest just a bit ago, and got to meet him again for the second time. We did just brief interactions. And the first time he was here, I was in South by. I was visiting Austin. I was in South by Southwest, and I went to a talk that he was going to be on a panel, and I got really there early because I wanted to make sure I had a good seat because I really wanted to meet him. And I look over and someone's sitting on the edge of the stage. And I go, that looks like Mark Cuban. And but like nobody's talking to him. And so I'm like, I'm gonna go talk to him. Got to have a few minute conversation with him at that point. And that just really demonstrates how personable he was. He came to the talk early just so he could be able to interact and talk to people
Wow.
on a one-on-one basis and have some time for that. And same at this past weekend, he spent some time after the talk. He didn't just run away. He came and talked to everyone. Just so smart and down to earth. Yeah, he's a billionaire, but you just get the person who really is interested and cares about what's going on. He talked about just still tinkering. He's got a Mac Mini. He's tinkering with OpenClaw for his AI agents. And I'm like, he's actually down in the weeds with the rest of us trying to figure out
Yeah.
these things. And yeah, I would love to spend more time with him. He's just talked about so many stories where people have cold emailed him, and he's gotten business with them after learning about. Oh, that's an interesting idea. I'd like to
Yeah.
hear more about it. Just curious and thoughtful and open to interacting. It's not pretentious at any by any means, and so I would love to spend lot more time with him.
You know, when you see these people, because he's on TV all the time, he's always in headlines. You draw this conclusion, so to speak, and I've always felt like Cuban comes across as a genuine guy. Like what you see is what you get. Now with some of the others, it may be a little bit masked and murky, but he like Richard Branson seems like he's a straight up kind of guy too.
Yeah.
They seem like figures that are that's it. You nailed it. They're always curious. Like they're not somewhere along the way, someone told them, don't say no. Whatever you do, say yes. And they did it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So they're the ones. So let me ask you this. What is it that gets you up every day to do your job at a high level, to be successful, to take care of your soul, to do all of this holistically? What is that energy for you when that alarm clock goes off?
Yeah, it's what's going to happen today.
Yeah.
I'm really curious that when things are great, that's right, that's great. Things are rolling, and and opportunities are coming to you. That's easy to get up. You're like, oh, what's going to happen now? Also, when things are down or are struggling, something could happen that day that just changes everything. You could have met somebody 6 months ago that's that's finally coming to fruition, or you've been banging away at whatever, and then something pops. You never know what's going to happen that day, and it's just I just am just curious, like, oh, what will happen today? Whether you're flying high or in a challenge, that can all change any day.
Uh-huh.
And so it's about getting up and doing that, and keep in general, just keeping yourself rested, healthy, just so you're ready for the opportunity when it comes. And so that's what gets me up every day. Is like, oh, well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen today?
Yeah. So as an entrepreneur, having it in your DNA, it's all about risk. There's the fail and there's the succeed part, and there's this fearlessness. When you look back on your career, what's the biggest risk that you've taken?
Well, the biggest risk I'd say was definitely starting my company when I was 25 years old. I mean, now when I think about it, I guess I had a whole lifetime to make up for that risk. But that's the first time I took money from somebody, and I had somebody's investment. Well, whatever level of how it was structured, but I had somebody else's money,
Yeah.
and whether I failed or succeeded, that I was like, oh, I have to get this money back to this person. And that was the biggest jump that I made. Also, 25, there's other things that usually drive your priorities in life. So to take that on, yeah, that just was a big leap of faith. And I remember I was struggling because by the time you got through 4 or 5 years, you've got a pretty good run to at it. But the first couple of years are obviously the hardest, and you know, and it's, especially if you don't know what you're doing, you're 25 years old, whatever. Or I definitely did not. And the the point where I was really struggling, someone wrote me a letter, that was one of my friends, and said, "Hey, you're inspiring. You're doing things. You just stay at it. Da, da, da." It's something you just need to hear. Like, I wouldn't expect. That's why I get up in the morning and see what's going to happen. I got that letter and said, "Okay, yeah, no, keep going, keep going. You just need those little nudges there." Here and there. So that was I think one of the biggest risks. And it was the biggest payoff I've had. The things that I did then during that time period, the stuff I created, is still having a lot of impact in my life now.
So if you had a dream tonight and ran into that 12-year-old that just shoveled the driveway and went up to get money at the door, and you walked into a room and there was a film projector and you hit play and it was a highlight reel of the life that you've lived so far, would that young version of you believe that your life turned out this way?
Yeah, maybe I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think so. Yeah, hard work, curiosity, creativity, all those things were things that I was interested in. I'm a lifelong athlete, so being able to take care of myself, was being able to shovel that driveway was definitely part of that. Being able to be athletic, but yeah, no, I think so. I mean, I think it would be pretty pleased and happy, but yeah, I don't think it would be unexpected.
Yeah. So let's say you walked into a room of everybody that's known you in a business professional sense throughout your career. You swim through that sea of people and go to a podium, and you can tell them one fun story about your life. The first concert you went to, a seminal sporting experience, traveling somewhere, jumping out of an airplane, some fun story that would humanize you a little bit to a room that knows you in a professional sense. What story would you tell that room?
Something that, in professional sense, that was personal. Um, I mean, I think one of the most amazing things I got to do was, after getting through the sale of my company, was be able to take time to travel around the world. This was 2016, I think. Yeah. And being able to take the time, that break, to just go around the world. We had a loose direction of where we wanted to go, but be able to just go all over the globe, and without any huge agenda, like, okay, what we're here, well, how long we will stay, I don't know, we'll stay until we're ready to go to the next thing. And just being able to have that space to reflect and explore. I just having that, whenever you can travel and have that mental map of a place, or just it just expands your thinking, the expansiveness of your ability to be creative, to think, just to have just a bigger worldview.
Yeah.
That's expansiveness comes to play when you're talking to somebody just in general. You just have this larger thing in your mind that like, okay, yes, no matter what you say, I think I might have a frame of reference that I could pull from, and that's invaluable.
Yeah, certainly is. So, of everything that you've done in your life, and you look at the proverbial rearview mirror, what are you the happiest about? What are you the proudest of?
What I'm the proudest of is being able to still compete in my chosen sport. I'm so shocked that I can still do this at the level I am, and that gives me a lot of pride every day. It gives me the ability to have little micro accomplishments. Because running a business is up and down, up and down, up and down. It's a mental roller coaster, and to be able to have something I'm really good at. That's my foundation, and it always has been. Even when in college, whenever the grades were bad or things were going wrong, I'm like, okay, just focus on. I was a NCAA Division I track and cross country athlete, and so whenever I was losing or not right up to speed, I just go back to the structure of that and go back to that structure. Like, oh, you're good at this. Stay in the structure of that. That allows enough little micro wins that said, even every day, little micro wins. To be like, okay, we're still moving. We're still moving. And that's at the heart of the solution focused approach that we do at Stamina Lab. Is not about beating yourself up for what you're not doing. It's noticing where you're already on the path to the person you want to be, or because you never fall off the horse. There's always something you are doing.
Yeah.
And so it's about just continuing to notice that. And that's, I think, really the power of it. You're never like, we say like you get into an issue where you didn't live up to the expectation you wanted to do. And that, say, oh, I had half a bottle of wine, or I had half a pint of ice cream, or whatever the thing is that you might have indulged in, and you might beat yourself up for that. And what we would say is, well, what kept you from drinking that full bottle of wine? Or why did you only have two? Why did you stop at two glasses? What kept you from stopping at two glasses? Or what kept you from eating the full pint of ice cream? Those are the resources that you brought to bear. And so just being able to notice where you're already on that path, and so being able to connect with that allows you to still have just about momentum. It's always about the momentum that you have and that confidence that you bring to it. That's very important in athletics and especially in running. I know it's a lot of athletics, but having that momentum,
Yeah.
having that little bit of micro confidence that hey, you're doing that. Very important for being an entrepreneur too, as well. And applies to everybody in life. We're the entrepreneurs, owners of our own life. So just continuing to notice where you're already in the past. So you're not spending time dwelling on the things that are not going well or the negatives. It's just constantly looking for where you do have momentum. And that always uplifts and
Yeah.
pulls me out and keeps me moving forward.
It's interesting because I was a cross country runner and I think about what you're talking about with stamina. There are so many things that mentally through the transference of fluids and stamina that taught me how to get through things, and I always harken back to those days. I was 4'11" in high school, so I would have preferred being like a baseball player or whatever. I was like, I could do this. I can move my legs. It's fine. And I do that now. I'm 50 plus and I do cycling. I had shin
Yeah,
splints, so it's too much pounding. But I
yeah, yeah.
think about that. I'll go back whenever I'm really chugging, and it's like those early memories of stamina and running. It was very essential, and it does. It completely bleeds out into all kinds of areas of your life for sure. Yeah. What good memories you got? We got wired and cross country. I haven't thought about forever, but it's awesome. So let me ask you this. At the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you: family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone that knows you in all your capacities, that you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, these are all fantastic first questions. Perception of myself, I definitely look at myself as driven, curious, committed to my health, obviously, and well-being, and committed to helping others improve their health and well-being. Yeah, I think that's it's really just being a caring friend,
Yeah.
caring with my family, loved ones. Those are the values that drive me.
So if anybody wants to take the next step and dive in, staminalab.io, is that the best place to go?
Yeah, staminalab.io. We have a fantastic training program for solution focused. And if you are just someone who's interested in improving yourself, go to our YouTube channel or our Instagram. You can link to that from our staminalab.io. Tons of videos on that can help you start asking the questions that will keep you, focused on where you are on the path to your being the person you wanted to be.
I love it. Glenn, what a great story. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out today. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.